Colonizing Mars has undoubtedly been one of the longest-standing human milestones for space exploration. In the recent years, and with the discovery of ice on the planet, this search has only been amplified, and the general interest in the colonization of the Red Planet has risen even further. However, before we can conquer Mars, we'll first have to set up base at our own satellite, the Moon. In today's video, we'll be delving deep into the key reasons on why it is important to conquer the Moon before Mars. First, the Moon is logistically simpler to conquer. You see, because the Moon is only 240,000 miles from our planet, reaching it is far easier than reaching anything that is even as nearly as far as Mars, which is more than 250 million miles away from our own planet. Once the Starship is fully developed and ready for action, it will be able to reach the Moon in around 3 days, which is certainly a very quick tour. On the other hand, current projections about reaching Mars seem to result in a roughly 30 times longer journey, with a whopping 90-day ETA once the ship departs from Earth. As a result, it will not just be easier to reach the Moon, but it will also be much simpler to establish a reliable supply line between it and our own planet. Not just that, but any possible error will be much quicker to fix too, as such a short flight will be sure to result in a much better response time to any resource or equipment error, or even a hazardous situation that might happen. On the other hand, astronauts that would depart for Mars would technically need to rely on luck and exclusively on themselves, as the cavalry will simply not be coming from the nearest hill. Apart from this, we also need to note that constructing structures on the Moon is far easier than it is on Mars. You see, due to the Moon's gravity, constructing buildings and creating a base on it is far easier than doing so on Mars. In fact, most of the modern equipment used on Earth can easily be converted to function virtually flawlessly at the Moon's gravitational conditions. Granted, NASA and SpaceX certainly won't do that, as they're already incentivizing other countries and companies to create specialized moon equipment, such as the Moon Rover, which is being built in collaboration between Toyota and Mitsubishi. That said, it's still nice to know that our satellite isn't all that alien to our own planet. Due to how tame the weather on the Moon is, the equipment and constructions on the Moon are expected to last quite a bit longer than what they would do on Mars. In fact, there is also a possibility that, due to the Moon's weak gravity, lack of winds, and external factors, such constructions are expected to last even longer than what they would on our own planet. However, logistics and construction are only one part of what makes the Moon so beneficial. Another key reason why we should first conquer it is because the Moon is a possible resource bank for Earth. You see, the Moon itself also houses quite a bit of resources that are crucial for our own planet, and that can be depleted here much sooner than they would be if we mined the Moon. These resources mostly include elements such as iron, aluminum, titanium, manganese, and above all else, silicon. These can easily be brought back to Earth in large quantities to be used here, and this is especially beneficial because mining them on a planet without oxygen would be considerably more eco-friendly than what we're currently doing. However, the fact that the Moon is filled with all kinds of resources isn't only beneficial to the planet Earth, as because of its saturation with various elements, the Moon can serve as our first industrial center in space. You see, apart from being a good mining checkpoint for humanity's space ventures, the Moon can also be ideal for our first space station, as well as our first industrial center outside of Earth. How, you might ask? Well, simple actually. You see, despite seemingly being out of oxygen, the Moon's rocks tend to be filled with it. Structurally, up to 45% of the weight of the rocks found on the moon consist of oxygen. Oxygen that can be extracted through various means and then used. And since the moon will have only a few humans, quote-unquote, inhabiting it, this essentially translates to having an abundance of oxygen for regular life for those scientists and astronauts. Also, oxygen itself is one of the key requirements for most chemical reactions, most notable of which is combustion. And this is exactly where we can also utilize oxygen that would be extracted from rocks.
A well-proven method for extracting oxygen from lunar soil.
Not to mention that because of the weak gravitation, the moon itself will be a perfect spot for creating a shipyard, allowing us to construct considerably larger spaceships that will allow for grander voyages than what is currently possible with the Starship. Not to mention that due to the sheer abundance of hydrogen, the moon can be used as a refueling station for further space exploration. This is, of course, if SpaceX and NASA decide to start using hydrogen as their main propellant. On the other side of the spectrum, Mars is a very weak contender for a first interstellar base, as the only thing that it possibly has to offer is water, and even that is a huge question mark. Not to mention that, as of current, we're thoroughly incapable of even hypothetically creating a structure that would resist Mars's unforgiving environment long term. However, industrial and resource elements aside, there is also one other reason why we should conquer and inhabit the moon before any other planet or space object, and this is because the moon is the ideal training for conquering different planets. This is not only true for the human conquest of Mars, but also other planets that will be explored in both the near and the far future. You see, because of its extremely favorable conditions, the moon is easily the best starting point for experimenting with human and mechanical adaptability and prowess outside of Earth. As a result, all of the previously mentioned points will serve an additional function, and that is the function of experimenting and testing, as well as laying a foundation of what awaits us in the future, as we will be able to, under controlled conditions, simulate various scenarios with ease. So, overall, despite seeming rather lackluster, empty, and dull, the moon undeniably serves as the most beneficial celestial body for humans, at least until we become more developed than what we are now. And interestingly enough, our conquest of the moon will be of great importance and will be a crucial help to us with that.